Okay, gamers. It's time for another tier list. This time, it is going to be a skills tier list. I did a skills tier list for FE9 recently, and people seem to like that, and I'm working on a very big project at the moment, the FF4 video, that is scraping up to take a longer time than I expected. So I wanted to pump something out easy, and I figured, you know, what's easy is just throwing out a tier list. So I asked my patrons, I polled my patrons, and they voted for Fire Emblem Fates skills. If you want to be able to vote in future lists, you know, subscribe to the Patreon, and if you want to stay tuned for the FF4 Final Fantasy IV video, hit the subscribe button. You know, obligatory plugs, gotta do it. I know, it's annoying, but like, it really helps to say it at the start. But yeah, aside from that, tier list time! Woohoo! I love tier lists, they're fun. As always, disclaimer, this is just my opinions. If you disagree with me, you know, just let me know in the comments, why I'm wrong and stupid and smell bad. I'm only doing, so I'll show you scrolling down. I'm only doing the skills that you can get outside of the DLC. This tier list actually didn't even include any DLC skills, but that's okay because I don't use the DLC often enough that I would feel confident ranking any DLC skills. Like, I think the Dreadfighter skills are usually pretty good, but honestly, that could just be because Dreadfighter's a busted class and, like, it feels good. And then there's stuff like Rally Movement is, like, I'm sure that comes up in, like, LTC and Fast Clears and stuff. But otherwise, I kind of have no... Well, Warp, obviously, is fucking phenomenal, but, like, otherwise, I've got no idea. So we're just gonna be ranking the main skills. In case you are not aware, the route that I'm most familiar with is Revelation. However, I think the value of the skills, it doesn't really change from route to route. Their availability does, because certain skills, like, for example, you don't get any native Dark Mages in Fire Emblem Fates Birthright, so it's harder to get things like Heartseeker and whatnot. And I am factoring in the availability, but I'm not factoring it in per, like, okay, you know, Niles is the only outlaw, so Lock Touch and Move +1 are rarer or something like that. Instead, the way that I'm looking at availability is just, there's 4 different types of skills: level 1 unpromoted, level 10 unpromoted, level 5 promoted, and level 15 promoted. And so, obviously, they're supposed to have, like, increasing value, but that's not always the case. You know, for example, we look at the Oni line, right? Where's Oni Savage? Oni Savage right here has, like, at level 1, sealed res, and then it gets Shove, which is probably the strongest skill that the Oni Savage, Oni Chieftain line has. Meanwhile, Counter at 15, like, Counter is not great, but I think the fact that it's a level 15 skill and therefore, like, much harder to get makes it feel even worse. On the flip side, Inspiration is just a better version of Gentilhomme Demoiselle, but it is a level 15 skill, so it's much harder to get. Although, speaking of the Troubadour skills, I am giving the promoted Troubadour skills a bit of a, like, availability discount because Jacob and Felicia get early access to Rally Res, Inspiration, Live to Serve, Tomebreaker, and then using seals, they can also get, like, the Bow Knight and Paladin stuff and whatnot. But yeah, rather than, like, looking at the 3 casts and being like, well, there's actually not that many apothecaries. Like, I'll mention stuff like, you know, hey, you know, these potent potions or whatever, it's rare to get. But that's not going to knock them down. Instead, it's just going to be basically, I hold the level 15s and the promoted skills to a higher standard than the unpromoted skills. And if there's a really good unpromoted skill, like something that's like, oh damn, you get that early and it's super valuable, then that's going to get sort of elevated in that way. Tiers, I don't have letter tiers, they're sort of like categories. Godlike is skills that you want to get on basically everyone who can. There might be a few exceptions, especially if, like, it's, you know, a physical skill and you have a magical unit or something like that, or like, you know, the best support skill you can get, but it's on a unit who, you know, wants to be doing combat or whatever. But for the most part, every unit who can access a skill in Godlike wants to do it. Like, it's always worth the investment. So pretty high bar for that. Great is skills that you are willing to go out of your way to get. Like, these are skills that on their own can be motivation to reclass someone, can be motivation to, you know, power level someone to get them to a higher level for like a high tier skill. And there's skills that or alternatively, like skills that you probably want at least one of on your team, but you might not necessarily want like a huge supply. The big one that comes to mind for this is Lock Touch, is a skill that has diminishing returns, but there's a few other skills where it's like, it's nice, but the more of them you have, the worse it ends up getting. Nice to have are things that you appreciate them, they're a benefit, and sometimes they'll end up as part of a complete build, but mostly they're just sort of like, while you are on your way to the godlike or great skills, you'll grab them, you might fill a slot with them and eventually drop them, or like you might just get them because like, hey, you know, I'm one level away from, you know, Defender is one that comes to mind for that. I'm just thinking of example skills as I'm going down there, where like the primary reason you switch into Paladin is not to grab Defender, but it's like, I'm not gonna say no to it, it's better than an empty slot, right? Niche or build specific are skills that, I mean, it's basically what it says. They're niche skills, they have a use case, but it's not a super common use case, or they are skills that you might want on a specific build. The big ones that I can think of in terms of that is like the lower caliber rallies. I would put the higher tier rallies in like higher positions. But something like Rally Resistance, for example, Rally Luck, feel like, yeah, they're nice to have sometimes, but you mostly, you put them on a unit who has other better rallies, right? Like, who have things like, you know, Rally Skill, Rally Strength, Rally Speed, Rally Magic, and then throwing the other rallies on them, it's like, it'll be good for that build, but random, like, Xander doesn't want to hang on to Rally Defense, for example. Wasted slot is just, it's a wasted slot. You know, they might have some minor benefit, but for the most part, they're doing almost nothing for you, or literally nothing in some cases. And if you have any other, like, higher tier skill, it would be better to replace them with that. And then Gamble is, it has the honor, the dubious honor of having a entire tier to itself, because unless, and you know, as I go over these, I might find another one, but I'm fairly certain Gamble is the only skill that is genuinely worse than an empty skill slot. Everything else, even things that I would put in like wasted slot, right? If you have an empty skill slot, you might as well equip one of the like low caliber skills. Gamble, you want to remove that as soon as possible and never have it on. And I'll elaborate as to why when we get to Gamble. But I've sort of yammered long enough, so we're gonna dive in. Also, this is gonna be mostly unedited because I am trying to just pump it out fast. And as a result, I might have to pause recording to look up some of these skills because I don't have all the symbols memorized. And also, some of the weirder skills, we're starting with Corrin's, which is a bunch of weird skills, I don't know all the specifics of. So I have in the other window a list of all of the class skills and whatnot, but we start with Nobility. Nobility is, I believe it's a 10% boost to your experience. It's a 20% boost to your experience. 1.2 times experience gain. This is significantly nerfed from the 50% boost that Robin has. Robin's 50% boost was a huge deal. It was like a big part of why they ended up, not the only part, but like a big part of why they ended up such a dominant unit. Corrin getting a 1.2 times boost is still good. I think it's only in nice to have, though. It's a skill that, like, obviously it doesn't end up on your endgame builds because you don't really care about experience once you've capped your level. But it's also a skill that I feel like Corrin eventually drops. In part, it's because the experience formula in Fates is actually pretty harsh. Robin could get over-leveled using Veteran, but Corrin really can't. The 1.2 times, because of the drop-off when you're fighting lower-level enemies than you, the 1.2 times kind of stops mattering, because Corrin will eventually just be gaining 1 EXP from Chip anyway, or no EXP from Chip, and very little from Kill, right? So what ends up happening is you really only use Nobility to catch up if Corrin gets underleveled. But that is still a really nice option to have, especially if you're playing Birthright or Conquest, where Silas joins early. Vow of Friendship is a very, very powerful skill in the early game, but it means that Corrin can't really participate in combat as much, as recklessly, as you would otherwise. So being able to be like, okay, I'll put Corrin on backpack duty, because Corrin also makes a really good backpack, especially because, like, the flexibility in their class with the, choosing their class, and then also, supportive is a phenomenal personal skill. So if you want to, like, make use of early Silas, you put Corrin in the backpack, then Nobility means they can catch up. In Conquest especially, the Gunter map, where you get access to Gunter for the first time, where you've just Gunter, Azura, and Corrin, is a great time for Nobility to shine and sort of help them power level, to catch up with the rest of your team. Yeah, I think it's nice to have. I don't think it's as game-changing as it was in Awakening, or, you know, its equivalent, Veteran was, but it's still fine. And then, like, it's not really useful for Kana because the children auto-level. I think, like, you know, I mean, Kana sucks anyway, but, like, it's not really useful for Kana. It's not really useful for Corrin's other children, in my opinion. And the same is true of Dragonvein. I think Dragonvein is basically a wasted slot. Some people argue that Dragonvein I think some people would probably argue that Dragonvein goes in Gamble. Like, it is genuinely worse than an empty skill slot. And I think, depending on your approach to especially the early game, it can be. If you are planning out guard gauges, like if you have Corrin in pair up and using guard gauges, or if you're trying to feed kills to specific units, it is, so it's a proc skill, right? It multiplies your attack by, I believe, 1.5 times percent. Yeah, it gives you an extra 50% attack power. And that can be either physical or magical. And it only has a skill times 0.75% chance of activating. So it is a very low activation rate. It's not something you can rely on. It's like less than the crit boosts from GBA, right? And the damage you get is also less than a crit would be, right? So it's just, basically the idea is it's another source of critical hits in a game where critical hits are often undesirable because they can fuck up guard gauge math, because they can fuck up pair up math, because they can fuck up attack stance math, and because you can suffer from success if you're, like, especially in Conquest, planning out very specific, okay, I'm fighting exactly this many enemies, and then you fight one more, you might just end up dead. Again, if you're making use of Silas, like, and gambling with a low health Corrin, it could end up suffer from success moment. That being said, if you are approaching the game more casually, maybe on a lower difficulty, maybe on Birthright, which is the easier route, maybe on Rev, where Corrin ends up, like, so overpowered that they're not risking death as much, it can still be, like, I mean, not good, but it can still be a thing where it's like, oh, maybe I'll get Dragon Fang, and, like, it does a little bit of extra damage or whatever. I think it's still a wasted slot. I can count the number of times I've been happy about a Dragon Fang activation on one hand, but I can also count the number of times I've been upset about it on one hand, and part of that is because I do remove it. So, like, maybe it goes in Gamble. I think it's just bottom of wasted slot for now. We'll see how I feel when I get back to it. Draconic Hex is... I think Draconic Hex is just nice to have. So what it does is when you attack an enemy, when they attack you, either way, like it works like the seal skills. It's both player phase and enemy phase. you seal every stat by -4. And that sounds a lot better than it actually is. First off, because some of those stats don't matter. Like, the enemy getting -4 magic and strength, both of those are never going to matter. Unless it's like a Rend Heaven enemy or something. Enemy losing skill is rarely impactful. Enemy losing luck is rarely impactful, just because dodge tanking is not reliable in this game, outside of like Ryoma specifically, and even then, it's questionable. So a lot of the stats don't really matter. Speed only matters if it knocks you into a stat threshold. Strength only matters if the enemy gets to counterattack you, which if you're Draconic Hexing them, hopefully you're weakening them to the point where like you can kill them without a counterattack. Defense and res, again, only one of those is actually going to matter. So a lot of the stats don't matter. And then the other thing is that even in Rev, where enemies are at their strongest, you should be aiming for having the ability to 2-round. And Draconic Hex can get you to a 2-round that you might not otherwise have gotten, in the same way that other seal skills can. But it's rarely... The big thing about Draconic Hex in Engage, for example, the other game with Draconic Hex, is it adds up cumulatively over time. If you use Draconic Hex on a boss that you then have to fight like 4 times, you've gained benefits from the lowered stats 4 separate times. If you use Draconic Hex in Fates, and then you kill the enemy in the next round of combat, you've only gotten the -4 one time, and it only really mattered for certain stats. So I think for the most part, it's nice to have, like, if you have Corrin in a noble class, either because like you're using your seals for someone else, or like you're building towards a weird niche Corrin build, like a Hoshidan Unity type stuff, it can be nice, but I think in general, it's not worth promoting into Corrin's promoted class just to get this. I think you keep it if you have nothing else like for that slot, or you might grab it. I think actually it goes down to niche, because I wouldn't grab it over other skills. I would just be like, yeah, okay, I've got an empty slot, I'll put it in there. It's definitely not a wasted slot, because it will sometimes have concrete impacts, but I think those concrete impacts, even in Rev, which is the big enemy stats game, are going to be rare. And then in Birthright and Conquest, it's basically never going to matter. Maybe for, like, speed threshold so that Benny can double stuff or something. But then, like, you know, you'd go with Seal Speed instead if you have access to it. Because that's the other thing, is Draconic Hex is -4 for every stat, but regular seals are -6 for a specific stat. So if there's a specific stat like defense you care about, or speed is the big one, you'd much rather just have a specialized seal than Draconic Hex. And it doesn't stack. You can't get -10 by sealing and Draconic Hexing. You just get the higher value, which is unfortunate. Nohrian Trust is the next one. This is level 15 Nor Noble, and it means when you are either in pair up, you can access your... So it gives proc skills, right? If you're in pair up, it gives your backpack's proc skills. And if you're in attack stance, you can use your attack stance partner's proc skills. This can be very funny. I outlined in my Corrin review a funny little, like, maximum proc skill build using Nohrian Trust. I think it was either for Corrin or Kana, but there's some fun stuff you can do where you're like, basically every combat, you're almost guaranteed to get at least one proc skill, and that's fun. The proc skills themselves, you know, as I sort of went over with Dragon Fang, are not particularly good. There's a few that you like. Stuff like Soul is nice on certain builds. Astra is nice on certain builds. That's it. I guess Rend Heaven, just because it has a really high chance. The big thing about this, right, is you need to not only be running a heavy proc skill build, but you also need to be willing to commit 2 characters to it, because the backpack, you can only grab proc skills from your backpack or from your attack stance partner. So it really only works if your partner also has proc skills. I think this is a wasted slot, and I honestly think it's worse than just Dragon Fang, because at least with Dragon Fang, you have Dragon Fang, right? Like, you have the proc skill without any extra work. This doesn't do anything unless you have someone else positioned as, like, the proc skill giver. And then at that point, you also need to make it so that that's more worthwhile than just teaching Corrin the proc skill themselves. Because if you've only got 1 or 2 skills, like if you just got, you know, Luna and Astra, well, why not teach Corrin that? Like, Corrin can get both Luna and Astra based on friendships and marriages. So it's rarely worth it. It's like super high investment to make it do anything. And then the thing that it does is pretty suboptimal. All right, next up. Oh, these are the Hoshidan ones. Okay, I think this is Dragon Ward. It's like Savior from Radiant Dawn, I'm fairly certain. Yeah, Dragon Ward. Luck divided by 2% chance of adjacent allies taking half damage from enemy attacks. Okay, so if I'm understanding this correctly, if Corrin is standing next to someone, and that like Corrin's standing next to Saizo, Saizo gets attacked, then Corrin's luck divided by 2% chance to proc essentially Pavise Aegis. This is just a worse version of Pavise Aegis. I guess it technically isn't strictly worse because it could be magical or physical, but like it's positioning based Pavise Aegis. Is Pavise Aegis luck divided by 2%? I think it's a higher proc rate too. Pavise and Aegis, Astra, swap. It's Great Knight Cavalier. I'm looking over the list in the other window. Death Blow, counter. Oh my god, these are not organized at all. These are not organized at all. It's so awful. Great Master, Dread Fighter, Berserker, Mercenary, Wyvern, Dark Mage, Dark Knight. What the fuck is this? Okay, General, Knight, Great Knight. Aegis is skill percent. Yeah, so it's literally it's worse in 2 ways. It's got a lower proc chance because it's divided by 2. And you have to position to protect someone else. This doesn't protect Corrin, like it just protects the partner. So if they can attack Corrin, and they do, then it's useless. Oh my god. We did it. We nerfed Pavise and Aegis into the ground. Not that those skills were any good to begin with. And then Hoshidan Unity, plus 10% to skill activation rates. This is kind of like, so Nohrian Trust and Hoshidan Unity work together well, but you can only ever get both of them if you go Rev. If you're in just Birthright, Hoshidan Unity is, I think, what is it like? So you can get extra off of like maybe something from Corrin's talent, and then Astra, Salvage Blow, and are those the only? Yeah, Amaterasu, and Future Sight. So there's some activation rates. Most of them are garbage. Plus 10%, just a flat plus 10%. I guess it could be build specific. If you're doing the oops all proc skills build, lethality exists too. So in Rev, if you're doing the Hoshidan Unity plus Nohrian Trust, then maybe they can like build up to something, right? In Birthright, you got, activation rates, it's not just combat skills. So Profiteer as well. I think that's it. Oh, Miracle. And Kaze's personal. Yeah, it's enough that I think a niche build, like, I don't think any of the stuff that I listed was good. I don't think it's worth a level 15 too. But it's like, it exists. It does technically exist. These tiers are ordered, by the way. Hard to tell because I've just been putting them left to right so far, but I am roughly trying to order them. All right, next up, okay, we finally got out of the garbage skills. We're into good stuff. Elbow Room. So if you are on a tile with no terrain, I believe it's +3, -3? Or no, just +3, just +3. It's not that broken. It's not that broken, but still, it's basically a free +3 damage stack. This is godlike. This is a skill that you want on basically everyone who can get it. There is, especially in Birthright, but in Conquest and Rev as well, a pretty big absence of terrain. There's some fort tiles and forests and mountains, but for the most part, most terrain does not have, like, most of the tiles don't have, like, terrain effects. And for that reason, this is a mostly unconditional +3 damage stack. 3 is a lot. 3 is, I think that's more than Supportive gives. Supportive gives 2. It's +2, -2, to be fair. But, like, still, +3 is a lot. Getting it for free, and getting it as your level 1 skill. This is, I think, alone... Well, not alone, because we're also about to talk about Shelter, but this is a big part of why Cavalier is, like, worth dipping into. Shelter is better, though. Shelter gives you the Shelter action. It's basically, if you've played Game Boy Advance or Tellius, the rescue command, you can forcibly pair someone up into you, like yoink them into being your backpack. On its own, if this were used, like, as the way it's meant to be, it would still be great, I think, because it would help rescue someone out of danger. It would help with, like, fast strategies if you want to be aggressive, like, go forward, attack someone, and yoink them out of danger. Because, like, you could also use it to make up for mistakes. But I think that that's sort of, like, understating. Even if you're just yoinking someone out of danger, it can be part of a plan. Like, punch forward, attack, and then yoink them to safety for the frail unit, like, you know, an archer or a ninja or whatnot. However, what elevates it to godlike status is the existence of a strategy called Shelter Singing. Shelter Singing is where you can have Azura sing. She dances to refresh a unit, and then you have someone shelter Azura, and by using pair up, you can then have Azura sing for an additional unit. And you do go -1 on your total action economy, but since Azura can sing for stronger units than, like, your shelter bot and your pair up bot, it can benefit you, even though you're going -1 in your action economy when you shelter sing. Oftentimes you will have a much more impactful action. Like, if you get an extra Camilla action, that's worth 2 or 3 characters. You can shelter sing multiple times. It gets even more expensive in terms of your action economy. The more people you sing, the more negative you go. And at a certain point, it ends up being like, you're not really actually benefiting from all these things at this point. And positioning is also a little bit difficult. You have to do it in diagonals, basically, because you have to shelter, and then you have to go take, switch, dance. So there's, you know, a lot of intricacies to shelter singing. But the ability to pull it off enables some very powerful stuff. So at a high skill level, it ends up phenomenal. Even at a medium skill level, I would say shelter singing is something that you can do. If you are looking for opportunities, you can find them. And then at a low skill level, don't sleep on the ability to either use Shelter to correct mistakes or to play more aggressively without needing to worry about a unit being in danger. Like, if, you know, Saizo, for example, loves being at low HP because of his personal skill. You can have him, like, explode on people and then shelter him so he doesn't die on enemy phase. So being able to aggressively use Shelter is also, I feel like that's something people don't talk about because of how strong Shelter Singing is. But it is a legitimately useful strategy, and it doesn't require a huge amount of planning or skill to pull off. So at all levels, Shelter is just a phenomenal skill, and arguably one of the best skills. I don't really have an idea of like what the best skill is. I guess we'll find out as we're doing the tier list. It's definitely not Defender. Defender's nice to have. I think it's nicer to have than Nobility. But so Defender is whenever you are paired up, you get +1 to all stats except for movement. And that's cool. Like +1 to all stats is nice, but in the same way that -4 to all stats is less good than it seems, +1 to all stats is also less good than it seems. Most units are not going to use both strength and magic. There are some hybrid units, you know, like Camilla and Conquest appreciates both. Anyone using like Rend Heaven as part of their build appreciates both. Hayato and Rinka can appreciate both, depending on what you're doing with them. Like there's some units that appreciate both, but most characters don't. On top of that, res and defense, like I guess they're both useful, but it depends like what enemies you're up against. +1 speed, maybe you need it, but oftentimes speed thresholds, like if it pushes you over a speed threshold, sure, but it could be useless also. Skill and luck, once again, it depends, but I think +1 skill and luck is not a huge deal because it doesn't make, unless you, again, are like at 98 and want to push your way to 100, it's not going to make up that much on its own. And for a level 5 promoted skill, like if this was on the way to Shelter or Elbow Room, then like, sure, that's, you know, that's something. The real reason that this is, like, not great is it requires you, if you've, like, dipped into Cavalier for these two skills, you have to stay in a little bit longer to get Defender. Now, sometimes that's absolutely worth doing. For example, if you've sent a promoted unit into Paladin, they need to get 2 promoted levels to get these skills anyway, and they might be just 1 level away from Defender. Or if your seal economy is tight and you're like, okay, you know, I'll have Silas, I eventually want to be a Bow Knight, but I'll just have him promote to Paladin for now. I don't have the second seals for him, and, you know, I'll let him get Defender. That can be nice. I don't think it's anything you go out of your way for. Defender really benefits from the existence of Elbow Room and Shelter, because there are often times where you're like, I'm going to send this unit through Cavalier. I might as well go 1 extra level and get Defender. But yeah, this is probably the most overrated skill in the game, is what I would say if Profiteer didn't exist. But yeah, it's something alright. It's something alright. It's certainly better than Aegis, which is the level 15 Paladin skill. Aegis is better than Dragon Ward. So it is a skill % chance to cut physical damage in half. Or no, specifically damage from bows, tomes, daggers, dragonstones, breath, and ballistae. So it's by weapon type. And it's the off weapons, right? It's the non-primary triangle weapons. Again, it depends on what enemies you're up against. It might literally do nothing. But even when it does do something, like, it's a % chance to half damage. I think it's worse than Dragon Fang, but better than, what is this, Hoshidan Unity? I already forgot. But these are the Corrin skills. It's a wasted slot, like, and it's a level fucking 15 as well. Like, that is, talk about a long walk for a short drink. There's nothing to that fucking shit. And then Luna. Luna's another one that's just garbage. This might be the worst offensive proc skill, because at least lethality literally kills them. Luna is a skill % chance to cut the enemy's defense or res in half. At least it is defense or res. It'd be very funny if it was like Radiant Dawn, where it's like just defense. There's no magic weapons in Radiant Dawn, but like, you know, it'd be funny, right? Probably here. So often you'll proc Luna and it doesn't let you kill. This is like Dragon Fang, a weaker crit, but it's like a much weaker crit. Skill percent chance, like at least it procs more often than Dragon Fang. But Dragon Fang, the thing about Dragon Fang, right, is you get it at level 10 unpromoted. You might just, in casual play, be like, yeah, you know, I'll use it, and it, like, goes off a couple of times and helps me. You are out of your fucking mind if you are going Great Knight to get Luna at level 5 promoted. There are reasons to go Great Knight. It is a class that some people want, but, like, usually those people don't want Luna. How the Mighty Have Fallen. Luna's phenomenal in Awakening, but that's because enemies there have, like, really high defense stats. In Fates, most dangerous enemies do not have high defense stats. Stuff like ninjas and sword masters. In Rev, there's bulky enemies like generals and Oni. But for generals, you just use armor-slaying weapons, right? And then Oni, you hit him on res. I guess Basara, Luna's good against Basara. But again, just cutting defense in half is such a minor damage boost. I think Luna's really bad. And again, it's not reliable. Like, all the proc skills they're gonna have that same problem. Armored Blow. If this weren't a level 15 skill, it might actually be worth something, but what the fuck are you going in level 15 Great Knight to get Armored Blow? Armored Blow gives you functionally plus 10 defense on player phase. I think what it literally does is, yeah, literally it goes minus 10 physical damage received when the user initiates battle. So it doesn't actually buff your defense stat, but I think for all intents and purposes it does. There's no skills that factor in your defense, no like Colossus for defense. A plus 10's a lot, or minus 10's a lot. It's only against physical foes, and it's a level 15 skill. I can see this maybe as like a niche. So the thing is, right, my first thought is like, it's a niche skill for like Benny, right? Or Ignatius, if you're sending them general. Or Rinka. Rinka, in Rev can get access to this. Or you know, Rinka can get access to this in, Birthright with Corrin Marriage, if you fucking wasted your talent. Oh, no, Silas Marriage, right, because Great Knight comes from Cavalier. So either way, you can get access to this. The problem is, those are units who are taking 0 before Armored Blow from physical enemies. Like, I'd rather have, like, Warding Blow. There are also the units who, like, mostly perform on enemy phase. That's the big issue, is, like, your bulky units want to perform on enemy phase, not player phase. So Armored Blow, I feel like it's a very, very niche set of units where you're doing player phase action, you're not necessarily bulky enough to survive, and you're not able to avoid counters by using bows or shurikens or tomes. I guess, like, if you get it on, like, a frail ninja, like Kaze or Kagero or whatever, then it can be nice for them when fighting other 1-2 range enemies, like when they're fighting other ninjas or when they're fighting tome users or whatever. But I'd rather have, like, a breaker skill, like Shurikenbreaker or Tomebreaker. I guess beggars can't be choosers. I'll put it in niche, because it's definitely better than fucking Hoshidan Unity. I think it's better than, it's better than Draconic Hex by 6, because Draconic Hex reduces the damage you take by 4, and this reduces the damage you take by 10. So yeah, this is niche. I can see, like, maybe specific, like, Tsubaki might want it. There's some units who might want it, but a lot of those units also need to marry Corrin to get it. Like, I'm not gonna penalize for that, but, like, yeah, that's a whole other bag of, because, like I said, Tsubaki, but I don't think he can't marry Perry. He doesn't friendship Silas. He doesn't friendship Xander. So yeah, he has to marry Corrin. That's funny. Defense plus 2. I think it's nice to have. Probably less nice to have than EXP 1.2. Mostly because this comes from Armor Knight, anyone who's in Armor Knight is going to at least partially want to be tanky. These are just stats. Like, I'll never say no to stats. This is like it's Indoor Fighter from Awakening, but different. Natural cover. This is the opposite of Elbow Drum. Oh, that's so unfortunate for it. It's -3 damage taken when on a tile with terrain, but terrain tiles are very rare. There are terrain tiles, there's forts, right? And I guess you can try to take advantage of them. Like, your bulky units are gonna want to go on terrain anyway. I think this is probably... It's arguably better than defense +2 because it is 3 defense, not 2 defense, but it's conditional. And I feel like that condition... I feel like that condition makes it worse because it's a relatively annoying condition to meet. In Rev, there's a couple of forests and forts and stuff. But terrain gets rarer as you go into Conquest and Birthright. I can see either way. I'm gonna put it up here. I think if you're being conscientious about it, you can probably find a tile to make use of natural cover most of the time. Defense +2 is just, it's easier because you don't have to think about it. But this has a slightly higher ceiling, I guess, technically. So, you know, that's something. Wary Fighter's niche. It is specifically only good on Benny in Conquest. Because here's the thing, right? Wary Fighter, get above Hoshidan Unity at least. Wary Fighter, it stops you from doubling, and it also stops you from getting doubled. Most units in the cast can stop themselves from getting doubled for free, like just by stats. Either with tonics, rallies, reclasses, yada yada yada. Enemy speed thresholds in Conquest and Birthright are not high enough that you are routinely getting doubled once you get into mid-game. And since this is a promoted skill, it's general level 5, you're not getting it until you're in the mid-game, right? Once you're in the mid-game, you have the tools to get the upside, unless you're Benny in Conquest, or you're playing Revelation, because there are very fast enemies like Sword Masters and Master Ninjas, who will double you, and Wary Fighter can be good for that, if you're trying to, like, tank those guys. The flip side is that Benny... like units like Benny and Rinka, who are slow but tanky, can oftentimes just shrug off the damage. Like, it's also fairly trivial to reduce enemy numbers to 0, and if you do that, you don't need Wary Fighter. And Wary Fighter does have a downside. Even for someone like Benny, who's slow as molasses, like, you could face against slower enemies. General versus general, you can't double them with a hammer. Now in Conquest, the generals have Wary Fighter anyway, but that's a concern in Birthright and Rev, right? So I think it's niche because Benny appreciates it and certain Rev units appreciate it, but this is another of those skills that is, like, very overrated, I would say. Pavise is just, it's the opposite of Aegis. Swords, lances, axes, beast stones, monster attacks, or puppet attacks. It goes right next to Aegis. I think swords, lances, axes, beast stones, monster attacks, puppet attacks is more common than bows, tomes, daggers, dragonstones, breath, ballistae. Yeah, because Dragonstones and Ballistae is going to PvP only. Breath is like Garen only. So it's bows, tomes, and daggers. And I think those are the rarer enemy types on most campaigns. In Hoshido, like in Birthright, you hardly ever fight Hoshidan classes. So no dagger enemies. And very few bow enemies and tome enemies. And then in Conquest, you do fight a good deal of ninjas, that's true. But you also fight a good deal of, like, you know, Sky Knights and shit, right? I think Pavise is better than Aegis. I don't care enough to... Like, you could also say, okay, but Great Knight's a better class than General, which, like, maybe. It depends, again, on your team makeup and the unit. But yeah, I don't really care. HP plus 5. Do I have to explain what this skill does? It's great though. So there's a ton of skills that give plus 2 to a stat. HP plus 5 gives 5 to a stat because HP is a stat where like you usually have higher number HP than defense, right? However, Fates, most of the cast, not all of them, but most of the cast have tragically low HP values. So boosting your HP by 5 is actually a very huge bulk increase, and it's genuinely an appealing reason to go into the fighter class. I don't think it's enough on its own, but if you also want to pick up like a Rally or Axefaire or something, like it's a very appealing skill. I feel like I've never taken HP plus 5 off a unit once they grabbed it. On the other hand, Gamble. I always take Gamble off of units who get Gamble. So Gamble is plus, is it plus 5 or plus 10 crit? I always forget. Somehow it's always worse than I remember. Gamble is plus 10 crit for minus 10 hit. First off, that is a bad trade because the odds you're running, you don't gain as much crit as you think you do, because every time you miss an attack from that minus 10 hit, you also don't get a critical hit. Every miss is not a crit, right? So the minus 10 hit lowers the crit chance you're gaining. Plus 10 crit it's nothing. There is, of course, the idea that crits are generally bad in the same way that proc skills are generally bad if you are doing a hyper-optimized, hyper-planned clear, or even just playing casually but counting your guard gauge, right? Like, I use guard gauge very frequently in casual playthroughs. And if I can reliably know, like, okay, this unit will have a guard gauge for one of these 3 attacks, then I know they're safe, right? And with Gamble, you can't know that. The other thing, though, is that crits, even if you aren't taking advantage of the guard gauge, crits, that plus 10% crit is very rare on its own. So you only really want it if you're crit stacking, but your sources of crit are pretty rare. You can get crit for being in specific classes. I believe Swordmaster, Sniper, and Berserker? Oh no, Swordmaster I think just has a Void. I don't remember. Sniper, I know because Stream Chat told me the other day Sniper gets crit, and I know Berserker gets crit. You can get it through Savage Blow from Oni Chieftain, and some DLC skills, I believe, and Scarlet's personal skill. Other than that, it's just like a killer weapon or a club, the super great club or whatever. I might be missing one. No, I think that's it. Even if you manage to get your crit stacking to a high enough level, potentially even 100%, you are not going, like, it's easier, how do I put this? It's easier to stack damage and achieve the damage you would with crits that way than to stack crit and also stack hit. Because unfortunately, you can't just stack crit. The best crit weapon is the Great Club, which has no accuracy. Gamble lowers your accuracy. So now, not only do you need crit boosting skills, but you need hit boosting skills, like Certain Blow, like Heartseeker, which is not currently on screen, like a Breaker skill, right? Like, you need maybe someone to rally your skill, and it just becomes a whole ordeal. And like, what do you get out of it? The ability to sometimes triple or quadruple your damage if you manage to hit, when you could have instead stacked things with Faires and, you know, either Quick Riposte or the Archer one, Quick Draw, or Inspiration, Rallies, stuff like that, and just killed someone without a crit by using like a strong weapon. Because the crit weapons also have low might. Killers have absurdly low might. So if you're using a killer and not critting, you're not dealing that much damage. And you lose out on, I think you lose crit avoid yourself. You at the very least lose out on the crit avoid you would get from bronze weapons. But yeah, it's just not a good strategy. Gamble basically becomes make your character less accurate for no upside. It is the only skill that you should remove for an empty slot, unless, you know, you're planning things out and then like proc skills, you should remove those too. But yeah, Gamble's very, very bad. It is, while HP plus 5 is the reason that you like go into fighter, Gamble's the reason you avoid it. It's very tragic. Rally Strength, I think, probably falls into Great. So it's awkward rating the rallies on their own, because I think for the most part, there's a lot of rallies that are not great as just an individual skill on a unit who's otherwise not a rally bot. But a rally bot is, in case you haven't heard the term, a unit who dips through classes to get multiple rally skills, and then they can use the rally command to boost multiple stats at the same time. Rally Strength is 4 strength to everyone in a 2-tile radius. And it basically just lets you give your entire army, your entire physical army, extra damage. 4 damage is a decent milestone. Like, it's a level 5 promoted skill, and it's from Berserker, which is not the greatest class out there. But it's not the worst class either. Like, it's a big strength class. It gets minus crit avoid, which annoys me personally. But you can make, there's units you can make succeed in it, right? So Rally Strength, like, it comes along for free. I think even if you're not turning someone into a rally bot, Rally Strength can be nice on them just because it individually is a pretty big boost. So, like, that's cool. Axefaire, on the other hand, is plus 5 damage when you are using an axe. I think this is also great. Axes are a very good weapon type. Is this better or worse than HP plus 5 and Rally Strength? I think this is worse than HP plus 5, better than Rally Strength, because Rally Strength, it lowers your action economy, right? Someone has to click the rally button. Well, it's more overall damage, though, because it's 4 to multiple units as opposed to 5 to 1 unit. This is also a level 15 skill. So I think Axefaire is a little bit worse, but it's still nice. Axes are a very strong weapon, and if you have a unit who's focusing on just using axes, this is plus 5 damage for free. The only reason it's not up there in Godlike is you have to get to level 15 in a specific class to get it. And that's going to be true of all of the Faires. I actually think I'm going to... I went out of my way to order these based on the classes that give them, but I think I want to break that in order to rank the Faires and the rallies, because I feel like they need to be talked about together, or they don't need to be, but they're more helpful when talked about together. So let's move these Faires up, and move the rallies up. Because the Faires are so similar to each other, they all have the same effect, plus 5 damage, but only if you're using a specific weapon. And then the rallies are... I mean, they're also very similar to each other, but the big thing is that they work together nicely. So, Rally Defense, I think, is a niche skill, but it's the top of niche. I wouldn't commit Rally Defense to... Actually, I think it goes into nice to have. It's on Wyvern, it's on the way. It's like here. I think it's nice to have. Because if you're doing a lot of enemy phase gaming, Rally Defense can make the difference in terms of survival thresholds. I would prefer, like, if I'm gonna have a unit with just one rally, I prefer strength to defense. And if I'm making a dedicated rally bot, I think player phase rallies are typically more impactful than enemy phase ones, at least to the style that I like to play. But if you're doing a lot of enemy phase gaming, then Rally Defense is... I'm gonna actually put it above Defender. which one is this? Is this yellow speed or is yellow skill? Brown is skill. Brown or orange is skill. Skill is nice to have. I'm gonna put it above defense because it's good on both player and enemy phase, whereas this is really only good on enemy phase. Yellow, I think, is speed. Speed, I'm gonna say, is probably the best rally. Is yellow speed or is that luck? Oh, that might be luck. Yeah, that's luck. Okay, that's not the best rally. That's still a nice to have. I'll put it down here. I think it's the worst rally, but it's also... So, here's the thing about rally luck. You get it as an unpromoted class. So, once you have your rally bot online, it is the worst rally, but it comes for free on the way to rally magic. If you're a monk or a shrine maiden, they get both of them. And magic is, I think, less powerful than strength because there's less magical units than physical units, but it's on the same sort of level. Speed is obviously the best of them. Res is the worst one. Luck, I think I have luck above skill because you can get it early more easily. You can get skill early if you go with male Corin, because Felicia has early Bow Knight access, but Jacob doesn't without specific marriages. So yeah, I think luck is better than skill. Feel free to clip that for my style of play in Fire Emblem. Okay, now the Faires. Bow Faire, Shurikenbreaker, Axefaire. I don't think any Faire is below great. I think Lancebreaker is the worst Faire because lances are the worst weapon type. Swordbreaker is second worst because usually swords are the worst weapon type, although Xander and Ryoma appreciate it. And then I basically just got these ranked in terms of how useful I personally find the weapons. But I didn't really put too much thought into that ordering. I could also see this potentially, or even this, right? Like, these three are all very interchangeable. I think as a rev-brained person, there's just more dagger users, right? You get 3 ninjas and 1 mage and then 1 sucky mage. And then, like, I think bows are the best weapon type. Partially because of the classes that they're in. And partially because, like, high might, high hit. But yeah, that's the Faires and the rallies taken care of. In fact, I think I'm gonna move you down to here. Keep defense on this, keep skill and speed. Like, these are all, if I'm only getting 1 rally, I'm not psyched about it being one of these, but I'm not unhappy. Rally res, I'm never clicking rally for just rally res. There's just not frequent enough magical enemies. And even in Rev, where there are a lot of magical enemies, they're fucking hybrid enemies, so they'll just attack you with their physical weapon instead. But then, like, Conquest and Birthright, they have some magical enemies, but not enough that, like, I ever want to click rally res. Alright, that was a short detour. We'll probably do another one for the breakers, which we're about to get to our first breaker. Soul, we'll do Soul first. I'm gonna put Soul up here in niche build specific. For anyone who doesn't know, Soul is a proc skill. I believe it's skill % chance. And when it procs, you recover HP equal to the damage you dealt. Half the damage you dealt. It's level 5 hero skill. And the big benefit to Soul is if you have a tanky, fast enemy phase unit, Soul can increase their survivability if they're relying on some amount of, like, dodges and crits and Vantage and stuff. So someone like, think Ryoma, Soul Ninjas in Conquest, or Birthright. You do have to smuggle Soul into Birthright unless you're Silas and you get all the favoritism in the fucking world, because Silas is Kaga's favorite. Or I guess Medea's favorite? Who the fuck made Fates? Kaga. It's Kaga's favorite. But yeah, like, Soul Ninja is sort of the classic thing, but don't sleep on Soul Mage either. The reason it's a niche, though, is outside of that specific build, which not every, well, first off, not every unit is good at, and second off, like, not everyone's gonna want to do, because it is ultimately, it's a build that plays the odds, but it is still an RNG dependent build, and if it's not, like, if you're ever using a soul tank at a point that RNG is not helping them, then you can remove soul and get the same results, right? So, soul is an RNG skill, but it is the proc skill that actually does something. And I think for that reason, it ends up in build-specific / niche. Because it works in that niche. All right, breaker skills. So the breaker skills, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm missing Bowbreaker. That's Sorcerer. Where's Dark Mage? Here it is. Okay. The breaker skills give you plus 50 hit and plus 50 avoid when facing enemies with their specific weapons. So Swordbreaker, you get plus 50 hit and avoid against sword users. They have to have it equipped, so like Master of Arms don't get knocked by all of them, just whatever they currently have equipped, right? These skills, they're all level 15 skills. Swordbreaker is level 15 in Wyvern Lord, Axebreaker is Hero, Shurikenbreaker is Bow Knight, Lancebreaker's Blacksmith, Tomebreaker is Maid / Butler, and Bowbreaker Sorcerer. Axebreaker being Wyvern, or Swordbreaker being Wyvern is such a weird one, because Wyvern Lord does have Lance access, but it evolves from an axe-using Pokemon. That being Wyvern Rider. I said evolves by accident, so I leaned into Pokemon. I think these skills are, like, bare minimum niche. So, Shurikenbreaker, I think, is nice to have, because there are, especially in Conquest, there are, like, Lunge Chain Ninjas, and then in Rev, they're, like, Master Ninjas are some of the most dangerous enemies out there. So I think this has to be nice to have. Probably less good, like, I'd rather have Defender than Shurikenbreaker. But for the situations you want Shurikenbreaker, I'd rather have Shurikenbreaker than the rallies, honestly. Like, Shurikenbreaker on a ninja to delete other ninjas, or on a, Shurikenbreaker on a mage with, Calamity Gate to delete ninjas can be nice. Lancebreaker, I think, is niche. I'm gonna put Lancebreaker at, like, the bottom of niche. So it's weird, because lances are, like, the most common weapon type. I think it's probably, like, here. Lances are the most common weapon type in all 3 routes. Well, I think daggers might be more common in Conquest, but they're the same part of the color pie, because it's to nerf Xander and Ryoma, who have powerful swords. So, like, in that respect, if you just want to boost your hit, and you want, like, a breaker, Lancebreaker is the one you want, but it's also on Blacksmith, which is, like, the most inaccessible class ever. Ryoma appreciates it because he is, like, the only unit in the game that can genuinely reliably dodge tank with a specific build. And Lancebreaker is required for that build, because otherwise Lance units and Shuriken units break his ability to dodge tank. And you can avoid one, but not the other. Like, he can't get both Shurikenbreaker and Lancebreaker, but he can get Lancebreaker by marrying Rinka, and Rinka's a good backpack for him anyway. So, in either Birthright or Rev, I think it's good for him. And, like, other people appreciate it, but they're never gonna fucking get it. I think Swordbreaker's, like, if you're doing oops all breakers, which is, like, the get a bunch of hit and avoid, like, choose 5 weapons, those weapons will never hit you. It's a Felicia build, but I believe Corrin can also access it with specific pairings. That's something, I guess. I think it's a bad build. I think it's generally a bad build. Actually, one of my friends did a solo run with Felicia and did that build and was like, she was like, yeah, it sucks, actually. I think, like, Okay, how do I want to order these? Probably like this. We also probably move, like, you're probably worse. You're probably worse. You're probably better because you can help me get speed thresholds. Yeah. I also want to factor in that, like, while dodge tanking is a meme, the hit boost you get on these is actually really nice. And for that reason, I'm going to elevate Swordbreaker, because in Rev, dodgy Swordmasters are the bane of my fucking existence. I think actually... I'm going to put Swordbreaker at the top of niche, specifically for Rev Swordmasters. I don't think there's any really dodgy Swordmasters in Conquest or Birthright. I guess when you're fighting Ryoma, like, it can be good for the Ryoma duel, maybe. But even then, like, just use the dual club, right? But Swordbreaker, what do you get Swordbreaker from? Oh, right, it's Wyvern Lord, too. Yeah, so it comes from a class that you might want to be in as well. I'm gonna put it at the top of the niche. I don't think it's enough to be in nice to have. Shurikenbreaker is the only one I would put in nice to have, because there are frequently lunge chains of ninjas in Conquest, or, like, layouts full of ninjas in either Rev or Birthright. Like, there's ninja maps. There's maps that are just ninjas. You know, Chapter 17 Conquest is ninja hell, but, like, you also fight Oops All Ninjas on the map you recruit Takumi. You fight Oops All Ninjas in the map that you recruit Reina and Orochi and Saizo together. Like, there's a ton of, hello, here's all of the ninjas. I hope you like ninjas. So this is probably, what is this? Luck, skill, defense. Like that. I think like that. Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it like that. Okay. Okay. Next up we have Good Fortune. So this is a mercenary level 1 skill. It is a % chance to recover, I think 20% HP. I gotta double check that. Yeah, luck % chance to recover 20% HP. Okay, so it's luck, not skill. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. 20% HP is not actually that much. And the fact that it is a non-reliable, I guess, probably better than, like, okay. Better than, like, these are also skill %, and they're gonna heal you more than, they will save more damage than this will heal. Okay, so that's sort of where the divider comes in. This is, you oftentimes end up just grabbing it because you're in Mercenary or whatever. And, like, for that reason, maybe I could leave it in nice to have, but, like, I'm dumping it as soon as I can. So I'm gonna put it in wasted slot. Strong Riposte. +4 damage on enemy phase, or +3 damage on enemy phase? 3 damage on enemy phase. So yeah, 3 extra damage on enemy phase. I think it's probably still godlike. So the big thing, right, with Strong Riposte and its twin Quick Draw is you want Strong Riposte on units that are going to be doing a lot of enemy phasing, right? So, like, you don't get Strong Riposte on, like, Takumi or Mozu or someone who's, like, a frail player phase glass cannon type build. But if you have a unit who's either mostly acting on enemy phase, like a Soul Ninja or whatever, or a unit who is acting equally on both player and enemy phase, like Camilla, right? Absolutely Strong Riposte. Like, it is a nearly unconditional +3 damage stack. The condition being its enemy phase. Enemy phase happens more often than player phase. And for that reason, I think this is better than Quick Draw. I guess just spoilers for later in the list. As much as I fucking love archers, I think this is better than Quick Draw, because you can get more damage out of it. If you fight 2 enemies on an enemy phase, that's 6 extra damage. Whereas if you fight 1, you can only fight 1 enemy. Well, I guess dances, but you know. Move +1. I think this is only great. This is the level 10 skill for Outlaw. Actually, you know what? No, I think this is godlike, but it's like the bottom of godlike. The extra movement is very nice. However, oftentimes you don't need the extra 1 point of move, but when you need it, it is very appreciated. It's also nice in that since it's on an unpromoted class that promotes into a mounted class, you can immediately get the highest move possible by just promoting into Bow Knight, or through supports, you can reclass into a flying class. +1 move on a Wyvern or Kinchi, or Darkflyer if you're doing DLC stuff, is just kind of phenomenal. But even if you're just limiting yourself to staying in the Outlaw line, +1 move on a Bow Knight, which is a very good bow class, with high movement just by being mounted, it's nice. It's good to have. And if you take it into like a non-mounted class, it's still nice to like extend the range of your adventurer or hero or sorcerer or whatever. I think this is godlike. I think this is anyone who can get access to +1 move wants it. And that's sort of the criteria for being in godlike. Lucky 7. So Lucky 7 gives you 20 hit and avoid for the first 7 turns of a map. How good this is very much going to depend on your speed of play and also the maps you're on, because there are sub-maps in like Rev in particular, but Birthright has a lot of them too, and Conquest even has a few where there's just not really a fast solution outside of specifically like a hyper-optimized LTC. Like, you can play some maps quickly and finish so that almost every turn is under Lucky 7 conditions. But there's other maps where it's like, outside of LTC, you're getting Lucky 7 for 7 turns, and then the rest of the map, it's an empty skill slot. I don't think it's a wasted slot, because even though half the time, or more than half the time, depending on your speed of play, it will be wasted. I think on average, half the time it's off, half the time it's on. And for that reason, it's similar to like even odd skills that the beasts get. I think I'm going to put it in niche. +20 hit from a level 5 promoted skill is nice, but ultimately this is just a worse version of Heartseeker. Mostly a worse version of Heartseeker. You get the avoid, so like, I guess Ryoma reclass into Outlaw, or Adventurer. It's Adventurer. The promoted class. I think this is a niche skill. Nyx definitely wants it because her accuracy is garbage, but like, most units have easier ways of fixing their accuracy than dipping into Adventurer and getting Lucky 7, which isn't even always active. I think this has to be better than Wary Fighter. These are also accuracy fisters, but they come at level 15. So how much do I care? Like, it's 50 accuracy instead of 20. These fix your accuracy on their own. 20, it should for most units. It doesn't for everyone. It doesn't for Nyx. And like maybe Rajat? But she uses tomes, which are accurate. Well, Nyx does too. I think this is probably worse because of when it's off, right? In an LTC setting, this goes up, but I'm just sort of ranking these, more casually. Pass. I think Pass is also a niche skill. There is obviously a strategy that everyone likes to talk about in Conquest Endgame, where you can use Pass to 1 turn, and that's awesome. If you want to skip the best final map in the franchise, like, good for you. But otherwise, it's useful sometimes. Like, you can find some instances where it's beneficial. I think it's helpful for enemies far more than for you, though. I'm gonna put it, like... Do I put it below Wary Fighter? Being able to pass through enemies seems good. I guess on, like, a bulky enemy phase unit, right? Like a dodgy or just high defense ninja or something, or like a javelin armor or whatever. It could be nice to slip behind enemy lines. If you're racing for like objectives that thieves are gonna get to, like villages or treasure chests, being able to pass through and not have to worry about killing people in the way. Like, it's good for getting the treasure chests on Nina's Paralog. Conquest 18, I think it is. Black and White is the name of the chapter. The one where you're rescuing the Hoshidan siblings. The elevator map where you fight Sumeragi in Rev. The Birthright map that's the same map as the one where you rescue the Hoshidan siblings. I think it's Birthright 9. Like, but, like, when are you having a fucking pass unit in Birthright 9, right? Like, I think it's worse than Wary Fighter. I think it is a niche that is gonna come up less often than Wary Fighter. Yes, you can use it to one-turn endgame. But one, you don't need to one-turn Conquest endgame. And two, you can also use the Entrap Staff for that. Strength +2. I think Strength +2 is, like, nice to have. I think probably, like, here on nice to have. It's the level 5 Wyvern skill, and it gives you 2 extra strength. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, it's nice. It's in a class that you're, like, often going through as a physical fighter anyway. It's the reason Elise can be a Wyvern in Conquest. But it's also just useful as, like, if you have no other skill to put in there, like, I'll take extra damage. And you get it for relatively free. Like, you don't really have to dip into a class you don't want to be in. Lunge lets you switch places with the enemy when you initiate battle. You can choose to do this. Lunge can be nice. I think much like Pass, it's another one that's more useful on enemies than it is on players who will, like, lunge you out of formation. But you being able to lunge enemies out of formation can also be nice. If you can get lunge, like, if you reclass a Wyvern into a non-Wyvern, you can also do some fun stuff. There's some Conquest maps that are, like, clearly balanced around not being able to lunge Camilla safely into, like the Poison Jars area, right? There's a lot of bow units. If you reclass Camilla and have her, like, lunge and she's not threatened by the bow units anymore because she's, like, a fighter now or something, or I guess she would have to be, like, a Dark Mage, or Dark Knight or whatever. You know, you can do some interesting stuff with it. Ultimately, I think it's, like, worse than Lucky 7, but better than Wary Fighter. The higher your skill level is, and specifically the higher your map knowledge is, this will probably creep up in the rankings, but this feels pretty niche to me. It's something you sort of leave on and look for opportunities. It can also be nice for training units. If you're, like, you want to lunge a weakened unit into a position where, you know, your training project, Mozu or Hayato or Charlotte or whoever is able to secure a kill without being in the enemy range. So that can be kind of nice too. Speaking of training projects, Savage Blow is when the new user initiates battle, enemies that are within 2 squares of them have their HP reduced by 20%. So this, obviously, it can't be lethal damage, so it'll always leave the enemy at 1 HP. And for that reason, it's good for training up weaklings, you know, much like I was saying with Lunge. This is a level 5 promoted skill, but Camilla starts as pretty close to it. She starts as level 1 Malignite. So in Conquest and Rev, it's relatively trivial to get. And then, like, in Birthright, if you marry Jacob, I guess, like Wyvern Jacob, but Flyers aren't yet a premium in Birthright. I think this is another one that's niche. I think in the same vein as Lunge. I like it less than Lunge. I think I like it less than Wary Fighter, actually. It's sort of like Poison Strike. In fact, let's do Poison Strike and Grisly Blow at the same time as well. So Poison Strike is level 5 ninja. It is 20% damage upon initiation just to the specific enemy that you attack. I believe, I just gotta find ninja. I'm pulling the list, make sure it's not just 10%. I think it's ninja, N-I-N. 20%, yeah, it's 20%, but rather than AoE, it's just to who you attack. I'm actually going to put it above Salvage Blow because you get it as basically a free skill. It's level 10 ninja. And Grisly Wound it's player phase and enemy phase, but it's a level 15 skill. So it's kind of garbage for that reason. It's also not AoE. Like, it's Poison Strike, but player phase and enemy phase. And it can only be on Wolfskin and Kitsune. And it's level 15 promoted. Like, it's actually like probably worse than pass. Because it comes so late. Like, who are you training up? Against very tough Rev enemies like Onis and Generals, it can be nice to get the extra damage whittling them down. But other than that, like, it's very niche. Most of the time, you should just be 2-rounding anyway without the Poison Strike or Salvage Blow damage. But I can definitely see scenarios where you utilize these skills in a way that is, you know, useful, right? Trample is +4 damage. Trample is +4 damage against non-mounted units. +5 damage against non-mounted units. So it is basically a more conditional weapon Faire. I think it's still great. I think you still want Trample. I don't think you ever ditch Trample, but not being able to proc it against Flyers and Cavalry is certainly annoying. I think it's worse than the weapon Faires, because the weapon Faires, these are free. Like, there are very few units that by the time they get to level 15 promoted are using multiple weapon types regularly. So these are free. Trample is not free. I'm tempted to put it above Lancebreaker because Lances kind of suck ass. But I think it's worse than Lancebreaker. Like, I'd rather have, like, Obro, for example, right? The other thing is that Lances don't suck in Birthright. Lances don't suck as much in Birthright. They're bad in Rev, and they're bad in Conquest. But, like, there's some stuff you can do with, like, the 1 Javelin you get, or, like, the Sword Catcher, the Beast Slayer. I think you get a Beast Slayer. So, like, Lances are not... I still think they're probably the worst of the weapon types in Fates overall. But in Birthright, they might be better than, like, clubs, right? Whereas Trample is, like, it's always worse than the Faires. Yeah. Okay. Res +2. It's nice to have. Like, I think it's worse than defense +2. But I'm never going to say no to it, especially because it's on Troubadour, and Troubadours can become butlers and maids. So they really only Jacob and Dwyer, like, with actual strength stats, or like a reclassed unit. But, like, you know, you get extra res on the anti-mage class. Like, yeah, I'm never going to say no to that. Okay, Gentilhomme and Demoiselle. Okay, so these are gender-based. If you're a male troubadour, you get Gentilhomme, and you give females within 2 squares of you -2 damage taken. And if you are a woman, a female troubadour, then you get Demoiselle, which is the same thing, but for men. Depending on your team composition, one or the other of these is going to be better. In early game Conquest, Demoiselle is usually better. In early game Birthright, I think Demoiselle is usually better. But you'd also rather just have Jacob because he's a better combat unit. In early game Rev, I think Gentilhomme might be better. No, I think Demoiselle, because Kaze exists. Yeah, so I think Demoiselle is always better. Once you get to the late game, there's not really one that's better or the other because it depends on your team composition. Like, if you're running no women, then obviously Demoiselle's better in the late game, but if you're running no men, then Gentilhomme's better. So that's why I'm just looking at them in terms of the early game. I think these are both great. I think... just because they come early and come free, I almost want to put them above the Faires, but below the rallies, because Faires are endgame skills, right? And Trample's a Faire. Trample's just like bad Faire. So yeah, Demoiselle, Gentilhomme, above the Faires, below the rallies, because you can get the rallies sooner. And then we have Inspiration. Oh, because I already did Rally Res. I was like, wait, that's a level 15. Where's the 5? Inspiration is all allies within 2 squares get -2 damage received and +2 damage dealt. This is a level 15 skill, but it's also one that Jacob and Felicia can get more easily. You do have to reclass them to Strategist, which is not really what you want to do with either of them, honestly. Felicia doesn't hate it, but I think Jacob despises it, and Felicia, it depends on the route. In Conquest, maybe go Bow Knight, right? And then in Rev, maybe go Strategist, maybe leave her Maid, depending on your plans. I think this is a good skill. I think this is a great skill, actually. I put it in great. It's definitely worse than these because it comes later, and it isn't free. Like, these are free on Jacob and Felicia. Is this worse than Faire's? I think it is. I think it is because this is on your utility units. And utility units are harder to level up to 15 than combat units. The Faires, like if we're just looking at things from an availability perspective, you're going to get your Faires sooner than Inspiration unless you are hyper-focusing on getting Inspiration. Faires are also more damage than Inspiration, and they don't require weird positioning. It's making me wonder if maybe Rally, Luck, and Skill should be moved up to Great, because I think they are also better than Inspiration, but I don't think Inspiration belongs in just nice to have. Yeah, I'm gonna move Luck and Skill up to Great. I think they are a noticeable step down than Speed, Strength, and Defense, or than Street Strength and Magic, but they're noticeably better than Defense and especially Res. Yeah, so we're gonna go like that. We're gonna go like that. All right, next up we have Live to Serve. This is like the only game where Live to Serve is good, and it's specifically good on Jacob in Conquest and Birthright. And like occasionally early Rev. For that reason, it's niche. Live to Serve, in case you don't know, is whenever you heal an ally, you recover the amount of HP that you healed them for. Probably the top of niche, because it's not really build specific. Like, it's just pick Jacob, right? Like, pick Jacob instead of Felicia. Live to Serve's gonna be good. Live to Serve is like okay on Felicia, but she's not bulky enough to really make use of it. But Jacob can, if you leave him in Butler and like sort of have him lean into the Jagan role instead of investing in him, he can sort of self-sustain for quite a while, especially in Conquest. Less so in Rev. And it's less necessary in Birthright because the enemies aren't as threatening. But he can in Birthright. Like for sure. Especially because you have a lot of scrubs who are going to take a lot more damage that he can Live to Serve to heal up. So I think it's niche, but it's the top of niche because you get it for free on the unit that wants it. He is like the only unit that wants it. Maybe a Dwyer. And like Jacob does have a long-term build that likes it in Great Master. I've done that before with like a Sakura marriage. It's fine. Nothing like super worth calling home about though. Next up is, is this Certain Blow? No, this is Duelist Blow. Duelist Blow is plus 30 avoid on initiation. I think this is a wasted slot. Avoid stacking is not good in Fates to begin with. Avoid stacking that is exclusively player phase feels so worthless. I've made use of it on like Hinata versus Berserkers in the Rev Iceboat map. and like Hana occasionally, but it's so fucking niche. It's so stupid. I feel like its biggest claim to fame is tricking you if you use the battle forecast and forget that you have it. And you're like, oh, this enemy has no hit on me. I'll just like let them attack me. And then you fucking die to a 30%. Yeah, that's not very good. Vantage. Okay, so Vantage is... Vantage, it should be probably in build specific. But I don't even think that that's true. So like the biggest sort of like claim to fame for Vantage is Vantage Sweepers. Vantage means when you have 50% or less HP, you go first even on enemy phase, right? So the way that Vantage sweeping works is you stack enough damage buffs with a high might weapon and enough accuracy to have 100% hit, and you just one-shot every enemy on enemy phase, and then bada bing, bada boom, they die. So that's nice. That of course is like niche and build specific. I do think, however, Vantage is actually nice to have because it can be just generically useful on anyone who's doing enemy phase gaming. I'm gonna put it above defender, below rally defense. So if you're using guard gauge, Vantage means you attack first and you can get a point of guard gauge before the enemy attacks you and potentially trigger guard gauge that way. If you're using Nosferatu, Vantage means you can heal up before the enemy attacks you. If you are 3-rounding and doubling the enemy, or 3-shotting and doubling the enemy, right? You can attack them on player phase, hit them twice, and then on enemy phase, hit them for a 3rd time with Vantage before they can hit you. So there's a lot of instances where Vantage is helpful. It is worth noting that if you are playing Conquest or a Conquest exclusive paralog in Rev, then the enemy AI will know if you have Vantage after the first time Vantage goes off. And so Vantage sweep strategies become less viable because they will not attack you if you kill them with Vantage. Vantage is still useful in Conquest and Conquest exclusive maps for stuff like getting guard gauge, getting Nosferatu off, but it's a lot worse in those scenarios. I think if it was just Conquest, I would move Vantage down to niche or build specific. But I think factoring in Rev and especially Birthright, where Vantage is extremely available and extremely useful, there's a lot of characters who will 3-round with daggers in that game, or 3-shot with daggers in that game, then I think Vantage is at the very least a nice to have. It's never really going to be like a every single character wants this, but it's good. It's pretty good. It's pretty darn good. And of course, Ryoma having it for free, it helps a lot with his dodge tank build because he can Vantage crit stuff as just another additional layer of RNG. Speaking of which, Astra is a skill divided by 2% chance to attack 5 times instead of 1. Each of these attacks has the ability to miss, and each of these attacks has the ability to crit. It's basically only useful on Ryoma, but when Astra goes off on Ryoma, or Xander, Swordmaster Xander also appreciates it. When it goes off, you kill an enemy. If you have Vantage, you kill an enemy without taking damage. And oftentimes you fill up a guard gauge, because 5 attacks fills up your guard gauge. Now, if you're Ryoma or Xander, you're usually killing in less than 5 attacks. Also, the 5 attacks are at half damage. So it's 2.5 times damage total, but it's usually enough to kill, especially if one of them crits. So you oftentimes don't get a full guard gauge out of Astra, but you can get a larger guard gauge or whatever. I think for that reason it's in niche, probably like here, because it's really only useful on 2 characters and only in specific builds for them as well. Like Ryoma, if he's doing like Vantage life and death stuff, which he can do. Astra doesn't do anything for him, right? But it can be nice. It can be nice on certain builds for Ryoma and Xander and basically no one else. Maybe Saizo. Maybe Saizo in, like, Birthright. But that's a baby. Like, that's a maybe. Yeah, also one thing that I do want to acknowledge is there is a proc skill priority order in Fates. Basically, the lower, if multiple proc skills, if you have multiple proc skills, it checks the lower possibility ones first. And so if you have Astra, which is like the lowest possibility proc skill, it does technically slightly lower your chances of other proc skills, higher priority ones, like Soul or Rend Heaven or whatever, because it checks each proc skill in order, and once one succeeds, the others cannot succeed, right? So, like, once Astra succeeds, everything after it couldn't. There is a bit of misinformation about this where it says, like, Astra will steal a proc chance from Soul, and so, like, then Soul's proc chance goes really down low. That's not how it works. Instead, it just checks them all in order. But when Astra succeeds, it stops checking for others. So if you're doing, like, a Soul tank, Astra is not always the best skill to add, for that reason. Alright, this is Seal Strength. When you do combat with an enemy, whether it's player or enemy phase, they will lose 6 strength, minus 6 strength, and it recovers 1 per turn. I think this is a wasted slot. Probably, like, here. The Seal skills in general have the problem that Draconic Hex does, of you're usually two-shotting without them. But Seal Strength in particular, lowering an enemy's offense, I guess if you're attacking a foe who you don't 2-round and they get to counter you, it comes up, but, like, that's so rare. And they have to be a physical attacker as well. I just don't think it's worth it. Is it technically niche? I think it's a wasted slot. I think it's a wasted slot. Life and Death. So this is the level 15 Master of Arms skill. Seal Strength is level 5 Master of Arms, by the way. Life and Death is you deal 10 extra damage, but you take 10 extra damage. This is Vantage's best friend, because if you're trying to do Vantage sweeping, 10 extra damage, you don't care about the minus 10 or the extra damage that you take because you're planning on never getting hit because of Vantage. So that's really nice. Also worth noting that on bulky units, like someone like Benny, Life and Death can be nice just because you can sometimes just shrug off the damage, and if you want the extra damage boost, you get it. You get an extra damage boost, right? Still, I think this is ultimately niche. Better than Wary Fighter, better than Lunge, better than Lucky 7, better than the Breakers, better than Draconic, better than Armoured Blow, worse than Rally Resistance. Because I think for the most part, you're only using Life and Death. Like 90% of the time, you're using Life and Death exclusively as a Vantage thing. But you can also get it on like a bow unit who's never going to be countered, maybe. Like there's other ways to use it. It just doesn't feel good. All right, Aptitude. Aptitude is, I think, plus 10% or 20% to all of your growths. This is the Villager skill, so it's exclusive to Mozu and her children. Plus 10% to all growths. This is nice to have. I mean, it's just free stats on Mozu. On average, it's more stats than the plus 2s. So I'm going to put it here above the defense, but lower than strength because you get the plus 2 strength immediately. Probably better here. Yeah, probably better here like this. The one thing to bear in mind about Aptitude is, first off, over the course of 20 levels, it's only plus 4 stats, and that's at 2020. At 20, like once you promote 21, it's +2. So maybe it is worse. Well, no, it's all stats. So I think it's better than defense res. Other thing to note is Aptitude does not apply to auto levels for children, but it does apply to stats they gain with offspring seals. So if you give Aptitude to a Gen 2 unit, they're not going to gain any stats off of Aptitude until they use an offspring seal. And as such, Aptitude is not really useful as an inheritable skill. Unless Mozu has nothing else useful to give, I really wouldn't pass down Aptitude. But it's impossible to say it's not nice to have. Like, you know, it's extra stats. I'm never going to say no to that. Underdog is Villager's level 10 skill. It's extra hit against higher level enemies. 15 hit and avoid against higher level enemies. And for promoted foes or promoted units count as their level +20. That's niche, right? Like I think it's worse Lucky 7. It's less hit than Lucky 7. And I don't think you're running into that many higher level enemies. You're usually a higher level than the enemy, I find, in all 3 Fates routes. Except for maybe on some of the child paralogs, like the shared route paralogs. Or like when you're facing promoted units and you haven't promoted everyone yet. Maybe this is like worse than Wary Fighter and the Poison Strikes and Astra and Pass and the other Poison Strike. Yeah, this is pretty bad. This is pretty bad. The extra accuracy is nice, but the condition is just like nearly impossible to meet. This might be a wasted slot. What is this? 10% to proc rates of bullshit? I take this over 10% to proc rates. Maybe that means 10% to proc rates is a wasted slot. It feels... No. If you're doing proc rate bullshit, like, this is undeniably good. Proc rate bullshit just isn't very good. Seal defense. So this is like a seal skill. Anytime you do combat, enemy gets -6 defense. This is probably the second best seal skill. I still think it's niche, but it's functionally, if you're using 2 enemies to kill a foe, this is functionally a +6 damage stack in that like very niche scenario. I think. Oh, this is wait. This comes from because this comes from an unpromoted class, doesn't it? Yeah, this is Spear Fighter. Wait, never mind. If this is Spear Fighter, you get it for free on Obro, and and Ryoma's son, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head. And then you can reclass into it with like, you know, Takumi, Kiragi, stuff like that. Relatively freely. I think it has to be at least nice to have, because 6 defense reduced for free, and like Oboro is a very bulky Oboro and Shiro are like both bulky units too, so they can enemy phase and like reduce defense for a lot of people all at once. I'm gonna put this here right below +2 strength. That might be a little bit too high, but I don't know how much I am overrating it because Oboro is a very good unit, or how much it's like, it is legitimately useful. Like, it's functionally a +6 defense stack if you are 2-shotting, or 2-rounding, which a lot of times in the early game, which is when this is around, you are. Swap. So swap is a movement skill. It lets you switch places with an adjacent ally. That's pretty niche. It's like, it can be nice for positioning. I'm never gonna be mad about it, but I also ditch it pretty quickly. And it's not worth like going into Spear Fighter for. I think it's like here. Worse than Life and Death, better than Armoured Blow, I think. Seal Speed is probably the best seal skill. It's for speed, -6 speed. So that can like be huge in terms of doubling thresholds. but it's a level 5 promoted skill from Spearmaster. And I think for that reason, I'm going to put it below Seal Defense, because by the time you have promoted units, you're going to need to seal stats less often than when you're all unpromoted. I think Seal Defense is elevated by the fact that it is immediately available. All right, next up is... Rend Heaven. Rend Heaven. So this is a weird proc skill. I believe it uses the enemy, or your magic, or... Okay. 1.5 times your skill percent chance to go off. And it adds half of the enemy's strength or magic. If you're using a physical weapon, it adds half of the enemy's strength. If you're using a magical weapon, it adds half of the enemy's magic. This is the proc skill with the highest chance to go off, and it adds almost nothing a lot of the time. Like, if you have a mage against physical enemies, they have 0 magic. If you got a physical unit against mages, they have 0 strength, right? Even against units where you're proccing the appropriate stat, the damage that you add is not going to be significant. In Conquest and Birthright especially, enemy stats are pretty low. Just oftentimes it'll proc and be like +0. Well, I mean, sometimes it's plus literally 0, but sometimes it's plus like 5. Like, it doesn't make kill differences. Better than Luna. Yeah, better than Luna. Quixotic, or Quixotic. Don Quixote, plus 30 to your hit rate and plus 15 to your skill activation rate, both to you and your opponent. So it's like life and death for accuracy. This is a level 15 Basara skill. I think this is good. I think I'm going to put it in nice to have. I love the 30 hit. The 15 extra proc is like if you're trying to do something silly with that. The biggest problem is this is a level 15 promoted skill, and I think there are other accuracy boosters that you get sooner. I mean, Certain Blow's the big one, but also just like, well, I guess you're facing off. In Rev in particular, Master Ninjas and Swordmasters are plentiful in the end game. So yeah, let's bump it up to about hereabouts, I think, in between Seal Strength and Seal Speed. Good for hitting those, like, dodgy enemies. And it's on a Basara. They get Triangle over Swordmasters as well, and Triangle Neutrality against, or, you know, they can use Calamity Gate against ninjas. So that's pretty good. Plus 2 magic. Never gonna say no to plus 2 magic. It's unfortunately on Diviner, which is not very good, but, you know. I put it there. You know, it's basically just, it's plus 2 strength, but for mages. Future Sight. This is the stupidest skill. Okay, so first off, you never know when it actually goes off unless you're paying attention, because it doesn't show you, like, the icon like the other ones do. It is a % chance to gain extra experience on kills on player phase only. So it's super conditional. Luck % chance to earn double experience if you kill an enemy on player phase. This is a wasted slot if I've ever fucking seen one. It's also level 10 Diviner. If this were level 1, maybe you would be cooking with something. But by the time you get to level 10... what are you fucking, like, you're not under-leveled, right? Like, what are you doing? And it's not even guaranteed, and it's not even dual phases. And it's only on kills, not on shit. This is awful. Awful. Okay, Miracle! Luck % chance to survive an otherwise lethal attack with 1 HP, but it only works if you have more than 1 HP. You should never be putting yourself in a situation where Miracle is useful. If your unit had a risk to die without a luck % chance to save them, I don't care about the fucking Midori cope. you know, stack Midori with the Candlestick with Kaze pair up, and I don't care. Don't use Miracle. Miracle is bad. It's not negative, like it's better than Gamble because it is not ever going to hurt you unless you were doing like a sacrifice strategy and you accidentally Miracle to not sacrifice, right? But it's never gonna hurt you outside of really annoying niche situations. But also don't fucking use it, like it's garbage. Renewal heals 30% HP at the start of every turn. This is, you know, better than Good Fortune, but it's also a level 5 skill on Great Master or Priestess. Better on Great Master than Priestess, because Great Master tends to do more enemy phase stuff. Priestess likes to avoid getting attacked with bows. But generally, I think it's nice to have. It's a consequential amount of healing that adds up over time. I think it's probably like in between Vantage and Defender for me. Definitely nice to have. Counter magic. It deals damage. So if a unit attacks you, an enemy attacks you with magic, you counter them for the amount of damage that they dealt. Wow, that's awful, right? Like, wasted slot. Level 15 on Great Master and Priestess, which are high res classes. This is worse than Future Sight. Like, how are there two skills that are not Gamble that are worse than Future Sight? What the fuck is going on? But yeah, this is, on a high res class, level 15 promoted. You're not going to be taking that much damage from magic users anyway. I don't know what they were fucking thinking with this. Like, oh, let me just like go through Great Master and then reclass into a low res class and then like let the enemy attack me. And by the way, if you kill someone with counter magic or counter, you don't get any experience. It's awful. All right, Seal Resistance is the level 1 Oni Savage skill. I think much like Seal Defense, this gotta be in nice to have. It's right next to Seal Defense. I have it lower because I generally think there are more physical attackers than magical attackers. But it's worth noting that like Rinka makes really good use of this in both Birthright and Rev if you train her up. Because she can use like tomes as a Oni Chieftain. Better for her in Birthright because enemy kill thresholds are lower and her magic's not great. But just being able to do extra chip damage and have like actual fucking accuracy with a fire tome is good in Rev. But yeah, basically the same stuff I said about, Seal Defense. It's functionally a +6 damage stack if you are 2-rounding and if the second unit is using magic. Shove is the level 10 Oni skill, and it is another movement skill. It lets you push an ally 1 square away from you. I think it is better than Swap. I think it's better enough to end up in nice to have. If you're using a unit that goes through Oni and they don't have 5 combat skills they want, it's one that I will very easily just like throw on someone. Because sometimes, like, it's, you know, it's like movement +1, but worse. And that you have to waste a unit's turn to give someone move +1. But it can come up sometimes. I'm gonna piss people off by putting this above Defender. Also, it's above Renewal. But that's gonna piss less people off. The fact Renewal is above Defender is gonna piss people off. But that's okay, because it's correct. Next up we have Savage Blow. This is +30 crit? Or sorry, Death Blow, not Savage Blow. +20 crit. Oh god, it's even worse than I thought. +20 crit upon initiation. I'm gonna put this at the top of Wasted Slot above Duelist Blow. I'll put it below Duelist Blow. But either way, like, it's in solidarity with the Copers, the crit Copers. Charlotte is good, I swear, you just gotta make her kiss Rinka. Yeah, that's my impression of a Charlotte fan. And a crit fan. Like, crit's bad for the same reason I said with Gamble. But at least this isn't a downside. It is player phase only, which means like the Vantage crit builds don't appreciate it, which further limits crit stuff, but like, okay, cool. Counter is the level 15 Oni skill. If a unit attacks you at 1 range, then you will deal damage back to them equal to the amount of damage that they dealt. Once again, you don't want to be taking a lot of damage. Also, it's on Oni Chieftain, which is the bulkiest Hoshidan class. Like, it's a Hoshidan Armor Knight. So you're not just like counter magics on the high res class, counters on the high defense class. What the fuck are we doing with this shit? I'm gonna put counter below because it's also it has to be at 1 range, so enemies can just like bow you or whatever. God, the counter skills are so fucking bad. All right, Salvage Blow is the level 5 blacksmith class. Luck % chance to get a brass, katana, naginata, club, yumi, or shuriken when you kill an enemy, matching the weapon type they get. So if you kill a sword enemy, you get a brass katana, luck % chance. Lance enemy, brass naginata, etc. You don't get anything for tome users. You don't get anything for Zaf users. But otherwise, yeah, it's a luck % chance to get more money, basically. You can sell these or you can forge weapons with them. I think on average, Salvage Blow is a better source of money than Midori Profiteer. But it's still niche. You don't need money as much as you think you need money. I've just pushed down to a 3rd row of niche or build specific as well. But I don't think this is a wasted slot. I think if anything, this is a sign that this is a wasted slot. Where do I want to put this? Because like the money economy, so in Rev, before chapter 19, money can be rough. Because chapter 19 is when you get all the dropped items. It's the clone map, where you clone everyone and there's a ton of dropped items on the southern island. In Birthright and Conquest, money is like no problem. But this can be nice for like forges, although in Conquest you can't use it for forges because it is specifically Hoshidan weapons. And you can't forge Hoshidan weapons. You can sell them though. Probably better than Astra, I think. Like, the money's better than Astra. Okay, moving on. Darting Blow. Oh, God. I'm tempted to put this in Godlike, but I think it is just great. So Darting Blow is when initiating combat, +5, not +5 speed, but +5 attack speed. Specifically, Darting Blow does not stop you from getting doubled. However, it can let you double. The fact this is a level 1 skill is kind of unreal. The thing holding it back is that it's on a fast class, Sky Knight, but Tsubaki's slow, so like he needs it anyway. And like you can dip in to get it on someone like Ignatius or whatever, right? I think this is great. I don't think it's godlike because there are units that don't need the extra speed. But I'll put it here. I'll put it below the best rallies, above... No. It's below Gentilhomme and Demoiselle as well. Because you get these for free, no matter what route you're doing, and no matter which servant you pick. And they're always useful, right? Yeah. Okay, Camaraderie. Camaraderie is 10... Oh god, it's only 10%! If you are alone, if there are no allies within 2 tiles of you, you gain 10% HP at the start of turn. Not only is that such a little HP gain, but that's also like kind of an obnoxious condition. Thankfully it doesn't count backpacks if you're paired up. But if you're using attack stance, like fuck you, I guess. And yeah, it's on a flyer, but like it's an obnoxious condition for such a minor payoff. What is it with all these garbage skills? technically better than Future Sight. Yeah. I can see a world where this is better than Luna, but, like, at least Luna does something when it happens, even if that something is, like, nothing. This 10%, that's, like, 2 HP. It will sometimes make the difference for damage thresholds in Rev 9. Fuck, it is better than Luna. Okay. Hi, Editing Dani here, just cutting in. I actually made a mistake with this skill. I mixed it up. What I was describing is what happens in Awakening. In Fates, the condition is the opposite. You actually need to be near a unit. An ally needs to be within 2 tiles, and backpacks don't count for that. Ultimately, I don't think this makes a huge difference. It's still probably a wasted slot, but it should at least be above Good Fortune, since it is much easier to trigger the condition, even if the amount of HP that you gain is less. But at the end of the day, 10% of the Fate's HP values really isn't something you're going to write home about, so unless you've smuggled this onto Keaton, it's probably worth throwing out. Okay, I'll let you get back to the tier list now. Sorry to interrupt. Okay. Darting Blow. Or not Darting Blow. Warding Blow. Warding Blow, minus 20 magic damage received on player phase. I think it's a level 15 Falcon Knight skill. But it basically means you can attack... So it's on a class that is already good with res, right? It basically means you can attack any magical enemy and just not fucking care. Is this nice to have or niche? Here, we'll move you down so that I can justify putting this in niche. But also because Underdog does feel like a wasted slot the more I think of it. I think this is better than Armoured Blow. There's more physical enemies, but being able to say no damage to magical enemies, I think makes it just slightly better than Armoured Blow. Okay. Amaterasu. Oh, Amaterasu. Oh, no, this is Air Superiority. 30 hit and avoid against flyers. This is the level 5 Kinchi Knight skill. I think this is actually... Is this great? This might be great. Yeah, so this is how you can... This is why it's great. Air Superiority is basically how you can use Yuumi if you didn't pick up certain blow. Because Yuumis have less hit than bows. They have like a 10 hit penalty, but they have higher might, right? So Air Superiority against flyers is a good way to make Yuumis actually accurate. It also, if you're a Kinchi Knight, right, you're going to be fighting against flyers anyway, whether it's with bows or with lances. So it just feels like a free breaker a lot of the time, like if you're fighting against flyers as a flyer. It's weaker than the breakers, but it's also a level 5 skill. I think I'm gonna put it at the bottom of great. It feels like the best of the breakers to me, because it is, well, it's only active against flyers, right? It's not active against every enemy you want. Maybe this is only nice to have. Maybe this is only nice to have, like, here. Yeah, the condition is a bit too hard to meet. Amaterasu, on the other hand, the level 15 Kinchi skill, is all allies within 2 tiles recover 20% HP at the start of turn. I think it's very funny how much of a non-bow this is with Camaraderie. In order to have Amaterasu on, you need to have Camaraderie off. Similar to Good Fortune, it's like not that much HP gained. I think at the very least, though, it is like, I think it's enough. Like, the fact that it hits multiple units, I think it's enough to put it into niche, but like near the bottom of niche. Like, I honestly like it more than pass, and the beast, the savage Grisly Wound, but that's about it. I'm gonna move Gamble down for now. So bye Gamble. Makalov crying in the corner. We got rid of gambling. Skill +2. This is another just nice to have. I think it's like here. I like it less than defense +2, but more than res +2. It's an extra accuracy boost, but especially since it comes from Archer, which naturally gets either air superiority or certain blow, it feels less necessary. But it's a level 1 Archer skill, so, you know, you get it early. It's a tiny accuracy buff. Every little bit helps. Quick Draw. I think Quick Draw is also godlike. It is basically the player phase equivalent of Strong Riposte, plus 4 damage on player phase. 4 is more than 3, but as I said, with Strong Riposte, you can trigger Strong Riposte multiple times in a singular, like, enemy phase. So I think on average, you are going to be getting more damage from Strong Riposte. That being said, like, if you can get Quick Draw, obviously don't put Quick Draw on a unit that's not doing player phase actions, and don't put Strong Riposte on a unit that's not doing enemy phase actions. But other than that, like, yeah, it's fucking phenomenal, right? Certain Blow. Here we fucking go. Level 5 sniper plus 40 hit rate when the user initiates battle. This lets you use Yuumi, obviously. It lets you use less accurate Yuumi, stuff like the Spellbane, which is a My Castle, or the Dual Yuumi. It lets you hit, like, dodgy ninjas, dodgy swordmasters with the Dual Yuumi. 40 extra hit means no accuracy problems. Like, if Nyx gets this, this is my sort of threshold for you never have accuracy problems. Nyx can have this and no other accuracy skill and be fine, I think. This is also godlike. This is a level 10 unpromoted skill. I think this is a better skill than Quick Draw, but it shows up later, and that's the deciding factor, in my opinion. This is a phenomenal skill, though. Like, do not sleep on Certain Blow. It's also, like, it's not just an accuracy booster. If it lets you use weapons like Yuumi, like steel weapons that are less accurate but have higher might, then it can also functionally work as a damage booster, too. So that's pretty cool. Lock Touch. First off, I'm sorry, Lag Spike. This is not going in godlike. It does go in great, though. So I think godlike is gotta be something that you want on everyone who can get it. Lock Touch is your only way of getting a lot of items, especially in Conquest. That's where you get most of your money. But Birthright has some good stuff, like stat boosters and shit. Rev, I think, is where Lock Touch is at its weakest, but even then, that's where you get a lot of legendary weapons. And that's, you know, legendary weapons aren't great, but they're a lot of money, right? There's a lot of treasures that you appreciate a Lock Touch for, and I do think every team, no matter the route, wants at least one Lock Touch user, and there's some maps that I would even recommend multiple Lock Touch users. However, most maps you only ever want one Lock Touch user for, and that's sort of where this becomes worse for me. I think it's worse than Trample in that regard. Like, on the one hand, you can go through the game never having, you know, a Tomebreaker user and beat the game just fine. Whereas, like, if you play the game without Lock Touch, you're functionally playing a challenge run. Can I beat Fire Emblem Fates without breaking the law and stealing? Or following the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not steal. That might be an interesting... I think someone did that with Pokemon, actually. If I remember. That sounds like... Yeah, no, someone definitely did that with Pokemon. If I can remember, I'll put it in the description. Otherwise, someone link it, and I'll put it in the description. God, I gotta get this over with. I'm getting into the unhinged ADHD time. But yeah, Lock Touch is great. Like, it can't be less than great, right? Like, because you need to use it. Lethality is a fucking wasted slot. Like, oh my god. So it is a skill divided by 2 or skill divided by 4? Skill divided by 4! Oh my god, it's a skill divided by 4 chance of instantly killing the enemy. I think it's better than Luna. It never fucking goes off, but at least when it goes off, it actually fucking does something. God, this skill is garbage. Also worth noting, it got nerfed in Fates as compared to Awakening. In Awakening, lethality can kill someone you deal 0 damage to. That was actually part of the 0% LTC is Assassin Syri. It uses lethality on like Wallheart in the Wallheart maps, because that's how you kill Wallheart in 0% LTC. But in Fates, it doesn't work anymore, which is just fucking tragic. Golem Bane. Oh god. Okay, so Golem Bane is effective damage against puppets and mechanists. Mechanists, automatons, and stoneborn. So first off, the effective damage is only 2 times effective damage, not 3 times effective damage. And stoneborn, puppets, and mechanists are incredibly rare enemies. I think they're on a total of like 3 maps in Conquest. There's no stoneborn in Rev. There's a couple of mechanists. Mechanists are fairly common in Rev, actually. And then in Birthright, there's some puppet and stoneborn maps. I don't think there's any enemy mechanists. Oh no, there are on the Volcano map. They're on the Volcano map, which is also where there's stoneborn and stuff. Does that mean this is niche? It's a wasted slot on maps that don't have mechanists and stuff, but you would just take it off then, right? I think it's better than Grisly Wound. It's like not good, but it's better than Grisly Wound. The real reason you go down Mechanist, right, is for the level 15 skill, Replicate. Replicate lets you clone yourself, and so you have 2 copies of that unit. They do share a health pool, so if you get too aggressive with like an enemy phase unit, they can end up dying, but it enables some really nice stuff. On support units especially, it lets you like staff twice with the same character. You can have 2 rally bots. There's a lot of maps in Fates where you need to split your army, especially in Conquest and Rev. But in Birthright as well, if you care about turns, you're gonna want to split your army, because every map's a fucking route map. And so if you have like a rally bot set up, right, giving them Replicate to be able to rally both squads, or like if you have other support unit, like an Inspiration Staffer or Amaterasu unit or something, like being able to split them is nice. I think splitting a combat unit is less good than a support unit because of the shared HP pool, but for like player phase units, it can be good. The biggest problem is this is a level 15 skill, and so like when I think of level 15 skills, like the Faires, is this on the level of the Faires and like Inspiration? I don't think so, but I do think it's probably the very bottom of great. I see this as something that's better than like Air Superiority, the Seal Speed, right? Like, I'm looking at the stuff in Nice to Have, and Replicate feels like a step above them, especially if it's on a utility unit. And Jacob and Felicia being good utility units that can access Replicate early. In Birthright and Rev, that also doesn't cost you a Corrin marriage. And Felicia can get it in Conquest by marrying Kaze, although that's also a competitive marriage. Yeah, I like Replicate. I like Replicate. I think it is another overgassed skill, but I think less so than something like Defender, because it does have like a genuine strength. The downside is mostly just how rare it is, like how late it comes online, right? But Like, if things like Trample and the Faires are able to be in great, not that Replicate is on the same level as them, but it's like, you know, it's not too far off. And like, properly utilized, it can end up better than them. You just gotta be careful with that shared health pool. Alright, Apothecary skills now. So I'm gonna have to double check these. One of these is Potent Potion, one of these is Quick Salve. I don't know which is which. Green is Potent Potion. Okay, Potent Potion. HP restoration items and tonics have 1.5 times their effect. For vulneraries, this is like fine. It turns vulneraries into 15. The bigger thing is it means your tonics, you know, strength tonic, speed tonic, whatever, they boost your stats by 3 instead of 2. This is basically Defender for how much money you spend on it. So it's worse Defender. I think the healing is fine, but like pretty niche. Yeah, worse Defender. Comes at level 1 though. I think it's probably better than Res, worse than Skill. Like, because it's +1. The other thing is you can spend just the money for the stats you want, right? Whereas Defender has some wasted stats, and it doesn't cost money, but like, Potent Potion, you don't have to waste stats. You don't have to get magic on your strength user, right? Quick Salve is, I think, a little bit an underrated skill. So it lets you use potions, use items, like tonics, potions, healing items, as a free action. It does not give you extra movement. It lets you use them in the same way that you could, like, trade as a free action, or switch as a free action. And this basically serves the purpose, like, in PvP, it's for tonic strategies, but you would just tonic in preps and regular. The main purpose that this serves is to save your healer's actions. If you have a combat unit, someone like Obero can get access to this pretty easily. If Obero can self-sustain by healing for 15 for free every turn, because it combines with Potent Potion, then you can focus your healers on someone else, like Camilla or whatever, right? I mean, Camilla's not the unit that needs healing, but you know what I mean, right? I still think it's niche, because you're not always going to need to, like, heal with vulneraries and stuff. And in Rev, you gotta buy vulneraries, although you usually get a steady supply in Birthright. I don't know about Conquest. I think there's not. I think you mostly have to buy vulneraries in all 3 routes, actually. I'm gonna put it above Lancebreaker. Below Lancebreaker, I think. Final answer, below Lancebreaker. Okay, Profiteer. Luck % chance to obtain a gold bar after moving for the first 7 turns. Gold bars sell for 150 gold. So that's less than Salvage Blow. Also, you can only get a total of 7 per map, but you're going to get less. On average, with like Midori, you get 3. You also can't use dances or shelters or anything to get multiple tries at this. It's always only the first time you move. You can't, like, you know, dance or get two attempts. People gas this up so much because it's the money factory. You get, like, even if you... Okay, so on average, it's 450 gold per map. Even if you get the most, that's 700. That's 1,050 gold per map if you get as lucky as possible getting gold bars. If you want a money-making factory, just use Salvage Blow. That's not turn limited either. Here? No, it's worse than Golem Bane. It's worse than Golem Bane. Money is not an issue in Fates. Even in Rev, once you get past Chapter 19, you have plenty of money. And if money is an issue for you, Profiteer's not solving your money problem. 150 gold per gold bar. Like, you're not supposed to sell those gold bars and make a ton of money. It can help with, like, edge cases in terms of money things. I know Zoran is doing a train everyone challenge, and he's made some use out of the extra money, but that's like such an absurd situation. On a normal playthrough, it's not gonna, like, that's not gonna be ever a factor. I did a playthrough with like 4 Profiteer units once, because I did a Azama Sakura marriage. And even then, like, the amount of money I got was just negligible. And they were all primary combat units, too. It was just like, what are we fucking doing, right? The main reason that Profiteer exists is not for money, it's for Spendthrift. So Spendthrift, if you have a gold bar in your inventory, when you initiate combat, the gold bar will be consumed, and you will deal 10 extra damage and take 10 less damage, which is a huge damage buff. That's life and death without the downside, and with the defense buff of 10. It's player phase only, and you do have to have gold bar in your inventory. You only have 5 inventory slots. In order to get, like, multiple Spendthrift values, you really cut into your inventory. Corrin can use this skill pretty effectively because of the convoy, but everyone else, it's basically functionally turn 1 player phase only, and you need a gold bar for it. Is it controversial to say this is kind of a wasted slot? I think I'm gonna put it on niche. It's better than Profiteer, but Profiteer fuels it. The big problem is just having a gold bar in your inventory. You can't choose not to spend it. Like, you can't bank your gold bar. You could, what you can do is give a gold bar to your, like, backpack partner and trade it if you're doing, like, you know, if you're backpacking with someone. Have your backpack partner trade gold bars onto you. Like, that can work, I guess. And that does, like, that strategy does elevate it, I think, above Gollum and Pass, but it's still, it feels like it's so niche, right? You have to have a backpack who is not doing combat, because sometimes you have a backpack that wants to do stuff. Like Xander and Ryoma, I think, backpack each other really well in Rev. Rinka and Ryoma backpack each other really well in Birthright, and those are units that are good units that you want doing combat, right? Rather than being on a dedicated backpack. So you have to have a dedicated backpack. You have to have gold bars from Profiteer that you're not selling for money. You're just using Profiteer to fuel Spendthrift. So it's functionally taking 2 skill slots. And, like, 10 is a huge damage bump, but it just feels like a lot of hoops to jump through for that, when you could just go, like, Axefaire Trample, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. I tell you what I'm not crazy for, though. Heartseeker in Godlike. Top of Godlike? I think it's worse than Shelter, factoring in Shelter Singing. It's better than Elbow Room. Heartseeker is the level 1 Dark Mage skill. You get this fucking immediately on Odin and Nyx. And anyone who reclasses into Dark Mage. And Leo. And it is minus 20 avoid to adjacent enemies. And that can give them negative avoid. So it's functionally plus 20 hit to, or I don't know if it can give the negative avoid, but it's basically, it's functionally plus 20 hit to anyone attacking a unit that you are adjacent to. This is like the way that you kill bosses on thrones, is you have to Heartseeker them so they can't dodge everything. This is like fixing Nyx's accuracy, fixing Nosferatu's accuracy, fixing anything with low accuracy, right? This is buffering your reliability by a huge amount. Like, plus 20 hit is a huge swing for Fates. And you get it for basically free on multiple units in Conquest and Rev. It's super rare in Birthright, unfortunately, but I think it's genuinely worth spending Corrin's talent. Also because Dark Mage is just like a good class, but I think it's genuinely worth spending Corrin's talent just to get Heartseeker. It's that good. Like, it's such a fucking good skill. Malefic Aura, on the other hand, is not. Malefic Aura is like fancy magic +2. Enemies within 2 tiles receive 2 more magical damage. So it's basically magic +2 with like the niche upside of like your other mages also will deal more damage to those units. I mean, if magic +2 is here and nice to have, I think Malefic Aura has to be above strength +2. But it's like, this is such an, I think I get more annoyed just because like it's worse than Heartseeker. It's such a nothing skill. Like, this feels like such a nothing skill. The fact that it's magic damage only annoys me. I get that, like, it'd probably be too strong if it was physical damage too, but, like, I'm very rarely using multiple magical users. So it just sort of feels like close to nothing. Vengeance! Oh, no, sorry. Seal Magic. I jumped ahead of myself. Seal Magic. That is the Dark Knight. -6 magic. Where's our seal skills? This is probably like the worst seal skill. Yeah, like, yeah, it's bad. Life Taker though. Life Taker's good. Level 15 Dark Knight skill. When you kill a foe, you recover 50% HP. You do have to kill the foe. That's like a kind of obnoxious condition, but it lets you self-sustain. I think this is great. I think this is better than Replicate. If you have like a Dark Knight Leo or Odin, basically just them, Hayato or Forest maybe. Well, not Forest, he's frail, but it basically lets like a bulky mage self-sustain without need for help from a staffer, and that's really nice. I guess more people could use Replicate than Life Taker, but Life Taker is also easier to make use of once you get it, because you just gotta kill stuff, and, you know, Leo's killing stuff because he's fucking bonkers. Okay, now we're at Vengeance. This is Awakening's Darling. 1.5 times your skill, right? Yeah, skill. % chance to increase damage by half of your missing HP. Proc skills are bad, and oftentimes this is just like +0. Where have I heard this before? I've heard this on Rend Heaven. I guess it's better than Rend Heaven, but it's not very good. Yeah, it's not very good. Alright, now we're on the beast skills. Oh, fuck, is this even or... Oh my god, I gotta pull up the goddamn guide. Okay, even, better, and better odds. And then even-handed, odd-handed. Alright, this is even-handed. +4 damage on even-numbered turns. I think that is solidly nice to have under Magic +2, because it's functionally... Magic +4 every other turn, but since it's on even turns, you'll get it less often than odd-handed. Or I think it's odd-shaped. Yeah, it's even-handed, odd-shaped. Odd-shaped I have above Strength and Magic and Malefic Aura. Even-handed I have below them. Because I feel like these are like 2 asterisks. Like kind of 2.5, because like half on, it's 4 damage. Keaton and Caden, like, Keaton, Caden, and their kids are gonna be the only units that have these. And like, they don't get a lot of skills, so you're probably always gonna leave them on, but I don't think they're huge in terms of like their impact. It's obviously better to have odd, because turn 1 is an odd turn, so you'd always prefer, you know, you always get more use out of that, right? On the other end of things, I gotta scroll down now. On the other end of things, we have, oh, this is, no, these are the even better and better odds. Yeah, so even better is, these are recover, what, 30% HP? 40% HP! Holy shit! At the start of even turns and the start of odd turns. So that's a huge recovery amount. I think this is, like, they're in the same ballpark as Renewal. I think even better is better because turn 2 is the first turn you can recover HP because you'll be missing HP at the start of turn 2. So even better is better, then Renewal, which is sort of like the middle case, and Better Odds, which is worse than Renewal, but like, they're still all around the same area, similar to like the Strength +2 for even and odd-handed. They have a very similar effect. Beastbane is Golembane for an enemy type that actually exists. Effective damage against Cavalry, so that's Cavs, Paladins, and Great Knights, and other Wolfskin and Kitsune. And that's pretty cool. I think it is still basically niche, but like much better niche, like better than Wary Fighter, better than Lunge, worse than Lucky 7. Actually, I think this is better, because in Rev, you get the Wolfskin and Kitsune, you get Keaton and Caden right before 2 maps with a lot of cavalry. And then there's Pegasus Knights on Keaton's join, or and Caden's join map in Conquest, and Keaton joins right before Cavalry Lush on Ryoma's map, because he joins them in the Opera House, and then you get like the map where you recruit Ryoma and there's tons of Cavs there. And Keaton is really good against the Wolfsinger because they do not have Beastbane, whereas Caden is not good, or Caden is good against the Wolfsinger because basically in Birthright they don't have Beastbane, but in Conquest they do have Beastbane, so it's harder for Caden. I think this is actually probably better than like the Bad Breakers and Draconic Hex. And the Blows. Yeah. I think this is a pretty good, if niche, skill. Alright. And now we go to Azura's skills. Luck +4. I'm not gonna say it's a wasted slot. It is stats, but like Azura's stats don't matter. So this is for Shigure and her other kid. I know people love Midori Luck +4, but I roll my eyes at that. Luck is one of the worst stats. I'm gonna put it in niche. Like here probably. Inspiring Song. Inspiring Song is, let's like zoom out a little, so we can fit Godlike. Inspiring Song is Godlike. So it is a rally while you dance. Inspiring Song gives you extra speed and skill. I think it's just speed and skill. Song. Yeah, +3 speed, skill, and luck. Oh, and luck. So it boosts your accuracy by a decent amount because it's speed, skill, and luck. That's pretty darn good. Like, that's pretty darn good. It's basically a free rally because you're dancing anyway, and it stacks with rallies. Oh, no, it doesn't stack with rallies. It doesn't stack with rallies. It's Laszlo's skill that stacks with rallies. Wait, does it stack with rallies or doesn't it? Hold on 1 second. Okay, I just double checked. Meister Sword confirmed that it does stack with rallies. So it's like stupidly broken. I always forget that it stacks with rallies because it feels like it shouldn't because it's like, because it's so strong. Is the Inspiring Song better than Shelter? Probably, because like you're singing with Azura every turn anyway, so it's kind of just free stats to whatever unit you want to sing for, and you're probably singing for your best combat units, so it's free stats to your best combat units, which is good. Like, that's good. Yeah, and it's also like the only skill that Azura fucking uses because then we have Voice of Peace. It's -2 damage dealt by enemies within 2 tiles of Azura. Technically, it's better defense. Like, it's defense and res +2 combined for Azura. And then it also impacts any... Like, if an enemy near Azura attacks someone other than Azura, Voice of Peace also helps. But usually Azura's the frailest person, so she's always going to get attacked. Yeah, so it's like technically better than these two, but only a little bit. Sure, it's better than you two. And then Foreign Princess. It's inspiration specifically for foreign army enemies, which I believe it's PvP exclusive. And if I'm tiering these things for the campaign, which I am, then that makes it also, like, literally useless. Still better than Gamble, because Gamble hurts you. But this does literally... Well, no. It does something in Invasions. I believe Foreign Army is Invasions, too. So Invasions 1 through 3. Okay, that makes it better than, like, half of this nonsense. Inspiration for just Invasions is, like, better than Camaraderie. Fucking hell, Camaraderie sucks ass. Yeah, that's my ranking. Let me know how you feel. I tried to order things within slots as well, but there's a lot of skills. So if you disagree with the ordering within tiers, you're probably right. Or, like, we're probably both wrong, you know, if we're being for real. But yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree or disagree or, whatnot. And, subscribe. Yeah. Alright, thank you to my patrons, which includes Femtal Illness, Wannabe Cinnabon, Punk Tattoo Guy, Key the Iron Idol, Calamity Callie, Jackson McMahon, Saren Gurlixy, Rezi, Dino Anna, Andu, Rhea, Gameboo, Karosa, Fyron, Your Doctor, Frozen Helm, Patwit, KH, Electric Giga, Girl Boss, Lizard Bongwater, Christopher Bueno, Marin McLean, Jaden, Dylan Solis, Some Trades, Guiji555, Smazurby, Zycrom, Robin D, Alenby, Thaythom, Clan, Pillow Willow, Gabe the Green, Glupshido, Erica Ford, Pergnite, YL01, George Grenville the 7th PM, Jamie Collins, Arvis, Crispy Matthews, Floahay, Amy Hazel, Hungry Heart, Hound Dogs, Burnt to Cinders, Lovis Roman, Cynthia, Faulty Videos, Kyle Madison, Derek Williams, Anna Cabana, The Daily Fugle, Faye, Magic Bite, Thoughtful Insanity, Robin Goodfeller, JT Spritter, Ziggy WSB, Dysike, Chris, Root Beer Pants, Queen Elizam, Control Aegis, Roman Cormancic, Nick Knack Hammersmack, Carrier Has Left, Angel Napcaceres, Zanwiff, Not Gino, Flingon, Edward C, Cyrocken 2, Cabbage, Caius Cole, Bree, Punchfighter Champion, Eggman, Maxine the Vampire Queen, Dragonback Lancer, Sardonic Muse, Wesley Toma, Name Number 5, Laura Hunter, and especially my Jagans, Him Rowan, Alexander Roper, Lil Man, Sensitive Luigi, Adele, Siggy, KTRRK2, and Autumn. If you would like to financially support the channel, there's a link to my Patreon down below, and you'll get early access to future videos, including a sneak preview of the currently in progress Final Fantasy IV video, which is about 4 hours long. Although, I understand that not everyone can afford to give $3 a month, so there are also free ways to support the channel, like liking, subscribing, and hyping the video so that others can see my content. But regardless of what you choose to do, I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay safe, gamers.